If you've spent any time with law or political philosophy, there's one name you just can't get away from: John Rawls. Before we came along, the map we used to think about justice was drawn in a certain way. After him, well, the entire landscape was completely redrawn. His work didn't just add to the conversation, it fundamentally changed the very questions everyone else had to answer.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the core problem Rawls was trying to crack. Then, we'll dive into his pretty radical blueprint for a just society. From there, we'll see how his ideas kicked off some of the biggest intellectual fights in modern law, before we finally chart out his incredible lasting legacy. So, to really get Rawls, you've got to first understand the question that was, well, basically keeping him up at night. I mean, think about it. We live in these incredibly diverse societies. We have deeply different beliefs about God, about morality, about what a good life even looks like. Rawls called this reasonable pluralism. So the massive question is, how can any single set of laws, enforced by the government, ever be seen as legitimate by everyone? For a long, long time, the main answer on the table was utilitarianism. And on the surface, it sounds pretty reasonable, right? Just do what makes the most people happy. But Rawls saw a huge, glaring danger in this. What if making the majority really happy means sacrificing the fundamental rights of a minority? Utilitarianism could theoretically say, go for it. Rawls thought this completely failed to respect individuals, and he was determined to find a better way. So, what was his game-changing answer? He called it justice as fairness, and it all kicks off with this absolutely brilliant thought experiment.
Imagine this. You and a group of people have to agree on the basic principles for your society: the Constitution, the economic structure, the whole shebang. But here's the catch. You have to do it from behind what he calls the veil of ignorance. It's a clever device meant to guarantee a perfectly fair and impartial starting point. Behind this veil, you don't know anything specific about who you'll be. You don't know if you'll be born rich or poor, what your gender or race will be, or if you'll be a genius or have physical disabilities. You don't even know what your own deeply held religious or philosophical beliefs will be. Why? Because Rawls's big idea is that all of this stuff is morally arbitrary. It's just the luck of the draw. And a truly just society can't be built on the lottery of birth.
So if you don't know who you'll be, what kind of rules would you make? Rawls argues we would all rationally agree on two main principles. First, and this one is absolutely non-negotiable, you'd guarantee the most extensive set of basic liberties for everyone: freedom of speech, of conscience, and so on. This principle has what he calls lexical priority. That means you can never trade away these rights for something else, like more money or the greater good, period. Okay, so only after those basic liberties are locked down would you even consider allowing economic inequalities. And you'd only allow them if they meet two very strict conditions. First, everyone has to have a genuinely fair shot at getting the best jobs and positions. And second, and this is the part that really shook things up, any inequalities that do exist have to work out to be for the greatest benefit of the people at the very bottom. That's the famous difference principle. So a CEO earning more is only just if that system ultimately helps the poorest person more than a perfectly equal system would. Now, this might sound super abstract, right? But Rawls actually lays out a clear four-step process for how this moves from an idea to actual law. You start in the original position, behind the veil, and choose the two principles. Then, the veil lifts a little, and you design a constitution that secures those basic rights for everyone. After that, legislatures get to work, crafting specific laws that aim to achieve fair opportunity and the difference principle. And finally, judges and officials apply all these rules to individual cases. It's a clean path from high philosophy to the law books. As you can imagine, a blueprint like this, especially its strong commitment to helping the least well-off, sparked a massive backlash. And the first major challenge came flying in from the libertarians. Rawls' own colleague at Harvard, Robert Nozick, came out with this absolute bombshell of a line. For libertarians, the state taking your money through taxes to give to someone else isn't justice. It's theft. It's a fundamental violation of your right to yourself and the fruits of your labor. And this table really gets to the heart of the conflict. For Rawls, justice is all about the design of the system. Is it fair to everyone from the start? For libertarians like Nozick, justice is all about history. Did you get your stuff without stealing it, and did you trade it freely? If so, the outcome is just, no matter how unequal it looks. And that leads to totally different ideas about what the government should do, from Rawls's fairly active state to the libertarians' tiny night watchman state. But Rawls had a really powerful comeback.
He argued that the very liberty the libertarians say they love is actually destroyed by totally unregulated markets. When vast wealth gets concentrated in just a few hands, it poisons politics. It creates an oligarchy. Sure, you have the formal right to vote, but what good is it when billionaires can buy all the ads and drown out every other voice? That's why he wasn't just arguing for a welfare state, but for a property-owning democracy, a system that works to make sure capital is widely spread out so that everyone can actually be a free and equal citizen.
Okay, so beyond that huge fight over economics, Rawls' work also forced a major rethink of what law even is. And this takes us right into the core of modern legal theory and his relationship with two other giants, H.L.A. Hart and Ronald Dworkin. Now, Rawls and Dworkin were actually on the same side in many ways, but they played very different roles. Think of it like this. Rawls is the architect. He's designing the ideal blueprint for the Constitution from scratch before anything is built. Dworkin is the judge. He shows up after the fact, looks at the messy legal system we actually have, and tries to interpret it in a way that makes it the best, most moral version of itself. This all gets at a fundamental question: where does law get its power? For a legal positivist like Hart, it's all about procedure. A law is legit if it was passed according to the right rules. For Dworkin, it's about making sense of our law in the most morally compelling way. But Rawls offers a third path. For him, a law's ultimate authority comes from its substance, the fact that it aligns with fair principles that we all would have agreed to. Just following the rules isn't enough. The law itself has to be just.
So, after navigating through these epic intellectual battles, what's the final verdict? What is Rawls's lasting contribution? Here's the most important thing to understand. Rawls didn't provide the final answer that made everyone agree. Not even close. What he did, and this is his real genius, is he completely changed the center of gravity of the entire conversation. His legacy is just immense. He dragged legal theory away from talking only about procedure and forced it to look at substantive fairness. He finally gave liberals a rigorous, detailed alternative to utilitarianism. He gave us a whole new language to even have these debates. Terms like veil of ignorance are everywhere now. And maybe most importantly, after he published his work, nobody, not libertarians, not positivists, nobody could put forward a new theory without first answering the question, okay, but what's your response to Rawls?
And this brings us right back home. When you look at the laws that shape your life, what do you see at their foundation? Is it just about following the correct procedures? Is it about a fierce protection of individual liberty above all else? Or do you see a real, genuine commitment to creating a system of fairness for everyone, especially for those who have the least? That is the profound and enduring question that John Rawls left for all of us to answer.